Are you perhaps referring to me, Lord here? This land shall know no dawn. I will spew forth darkness and drown all in eternal night. And high above you I shall shine, uncaring, cold and distant as the moon!
Welcome back, YouTube. I am so sorry it's taken us this long to get a video out to you guys, but as you can see, we have moved. We are in our brand new office, and personally, I'm having a blast with it, as tired as we are. But I want to get back to our journey through Final Fantasy XIV. And we were up to Stormblood with you guys, and it's time that we talked about something that was a little bit different. I want to do my first video back about Yotsuyu. The Yotsuyu storyline was one where I took a character that I thought was a meme, that the community had turned into this ridiculous, overly sexualized, silly thing, including Yoshi P. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was going on. But now I've completed that story, and I want to focus on that a little bit today because it was the first time that Squeenix took me on one of their rides where I spent more time probably thinking and questioning and taking double takes than I had done throughout anything. The Dragonsong War, as I said, was one of the best stories I've ever played through. But it was a classic fantasy story. I was an observer for the most part of the actions of Ishgard and the dragons. This time around though, I felt like we were making choices. Even though we weren't, but it felt that way because we were left with moral dilemmas. We took this character, this sadist, this maniac, all the way from, of course, she must die. We have to take her out. All the way to, I really care about this person. And then to ultimately fighting her individual traumas that she's felt throughout her life. Let's take a look at Yotsuyu.
No, I don't want to. Don't let her take me away!
It's all right, Tsuyu. I will come with you. Be a good girl and listen to Yugiri.
From a hound at his throat to a puppy at his heel.
This is not the first time we have looked at the story of Yotsuyu. Of course, we have checked out her abusive childhood, which, as we said, was not to garner sympathy for the sadist. You weren't supposed to feel bad for her, but have an understanding as to why she hated the Doman people. All the way through Stormblood, we have these concurrent storylines, which is, how can you do this to your homeland? Yotsuyu owed them nothing. And that was enough to set her on her path to trying to prove herself to the Empire. However, when she died with Gosetsu, it was a case of, is Squeenix really okay with killing off beloved characters? An issue I brought up in previous videos. And although I was happy to see Yotsuyu go on her merry way, as a sadist doesn't have much of a story to tell, or so I thought, Gosetsu is a beloved character, a really good character. So when he fell, I kind of didn't believe it. But what I did suspect is that they may have done something really silly. And at the time, I told a little joke based on all those silly daytime TV stories that we see of them getting amnesia, waking up on an island and being all merry. And one day we would catch them dancing on the beach, not aware of their horrible past. And you can imagine my surprise when the reality dawned on us.
To have arrived at the appointed place and time only to survive by mere force of habit. Truly.
Now he knows who he is.
Are not finished.
Yeah, he knows who he is. Totally called it! Totally called it! You guys were all doubters! I totally called it! Okay, so this is obviously one storyline in a myriad of another ones, but the reason I loved it is they played the Emirate card. The same thing we talked about in Heaven's Ward, is they used an established character in order to bounce off the ridiculousness and also give us some grounding. And that key element is Gosetsu. Gosetsu is somebody we've traveled with a long time now, over a couple of expansions. We have learned how proud and honorable this man is. He has lived far longer than he has any right to exist. And using that, we can get an establishment as to why caring about Tsuyu is so important. The biggest element for this actually was the meeting with the Dothal. But during that time, Gosetsu openly doesn't agree with their belief system, but he's gained wisdom in all these years. He's a wise man. And even though he doesn't agree with it, he understands he doesn't have all the answers. And that's what makes him such a great character. So when he sits down and he respects the Dothal wishes, even though he might be wrong, they might be right, it doesn't matter. He takes it in his stride. And the key thing here and how this plays into the Yotsuyu story is that he is a man after all this time and all the battles and all the bloodshed who is still willing to change his mind. He knows he doesn't have everything, and therefore he must be open-minded going forward.
It is because he has faith that his death will serve a higher purpose. There is an awakening in that instant. When the heart sings and the blood burns, and his soul finds peace.
This new realization to Gosetsu will be particularly poignant when he finds himself in the care of his abuser. A murderer responsible for so much death, a person who before Gosetsu's overriding sense of honor would dictate should answer for their crimes. But the question we ask though is this the same person? Gosetsu now has experience he can reflect on from the Dothal to help him try and answer this very difficult question for himself. The body and soul are very clearly separated in Dothal culture. We even meet a Dothal who is the reincarnation of a formerly male soul, now in a female body. This is the experience that pushes the audience as well as Gosetsu to ask, if Yotsuyu and Tsuyu are physically in the same body, does that mean they are the same person? Now obviously, this concept isn't new, it's been told countless times as it's a question that is extremely difficult to answer. If someone who has committed terrible crimes, however they no longer remember them and have no malicious bones in their body, are they still to be punished? In recent pop culture, several of you may have seen this story play out in something like Black Mirror's White Bear episode.
Do you know who I am? I can't remember who I am.
Now Squeenix has a big hill to climb. They need to make us care. They need to make us care about a villain who was so comically over the top that it was almost ridiculous. They do toe that line between it being too much and not enough every now and again, but they hit it perfectly here. And this is where they rise to the challenge, because they do things that other MMOs that show a cutscene every month or so, and usually because it's the big cutscene needs to be grandiose and over the top. This time they do it in nice, subtle ways, which raises more questions. They also utilize everything we've talked about so far, which is these established, developed characters that have had years and years to reach the kind of level where we know what they think. Yugiri is the player. We are full of suspicion. Of course we don't believe Tsuyu. Why the hell would we? Why would we believe someone so blatantly evil is now innocent lollipop-sucking girl? No, not quite. And Yugiri has that suspicion. She's constantly lurking behind corridors, even when it comes to friends, to figure out what's going on with them. Asahi is somebody who's blatantly evil, and he has private audience with her, where we don't get to have that video game look through the window, that fly on the wall aspect, and they run a little bit late and then they come back. What did they talk about? Did she reveal that it was a masquerade? Was he upset to find that actually no, his stepsister is actually reverted to this childlike state? And then of course we have Gosetsu, who sees his daughter, and we empathize with that, of course we do, and now has taken on that protector role of somebody who was out to murder him in such vicious ways. This breaking it up and giving us all these perspectives that we as the player are thinking about in our heads at the same time, that's what makes you engrossed, and that's why I fell in love with this. Having said all that, the most enjoyable part about doing any Final Fantasy story is they are very, very careful to not overburden you at once. They like to break it up into chunks, and this allows you to think. It's so superior to just having the big revelation, the big cutscene, or whatever it might be. And they did it so well with the Yotsuyu story. The introduction of Asahi is clearly almost a little silly. He's so blatantly the devil. There's no way of getting around it. As soon as you see that face reveal, you're like, okay, this guy is all bad. And luckily and cleverly, they didn't try and drag that out. Very quickly, Asahi reveals his true intentions. But what it does do is allow us time to think for hours. And I literally did think about this for hours with the thousands of people in chat, is what would we do in this scenario? Is Tsuyu a new person? Do we then have a right of responsibility? Do we have a duty of care to look after her? If we return her to the Empire as they want, they're going to kill her. But they're going to kill somebody who is a new person, essentially an innocent person. Or are they not innocent? Is this all a masquerade? Asahi going off and having a long private conversation with her is a big deal because we don't know what they talked about. Did she reveal her masquerade? Did she come across, well, now we know she came across as still being the innocent child, yet they still play it, and Asahi plays it in such a way that we don't know the answers to that. Do we owe her? Do we not? This person has been terrible to the Doman people. And all these questions are what made me prompt to do this video, because that's the kind of thing I want in my video game.
Can you truly remember nothing? Nothing at all? I pray that one day soon, as you gaze into that mirror, you will remember the woman staring back at you.
The pinnacle of everything for me is the persimmon. The mention of it clearly jogs her memory, and we as the player suspect, that's it, she's back. It's all come back, as has happened countless times across many, many video game stories. Instead, we watch. We watch as this innocent, naive young girl is harassed and attacked by the locals for what she used to be, while simply trying to make a nice surprise for her brand new protector.
And this is the point. This is the point when we firmly realize this is no longer Yotsuyu, this is Tsuyu, and it's morally right that we protect her. We finally feel that way. There's nobody here who followed this story who probably didn't go, we should look after her now. Yes, she was this person, but that is not the person who sits before me now. And it's wrong to send her to her death. And that's, of course, where Square Enix decides to actually take a needle and stick it directly into your eye. The finale of the story is very bittersweet. That's how I would describe it. It was bittersweet. It was done well, don't get me wrong. Asahi using those abusive parents against her. Her memory returning, which firmly puts us back in the camp of, okay, well, she needs to die now, right? She needs to absolutely die. The murder of her parents, and then ultimately the fights with her primal self, the icon that she becomes, and using her past trauma as actual boss mechanics in order to really send home the pain that she was internally dealing with, the conflict that she was having. Perhaps Yotsuyu remembers something of Tsuyu and would have preferred to have stayed that way. And how can you not love that journey? How can you not love it? And here's the thing, and this is why I wanted to make this individual video on it, is originally when Yotsuyu died, my thought process was on, that's okay, that character's done. It's got no more legs anymore. The story's told, the sadist is dead, whatever. And now, I miss her. And I would have loved to be able to revisit her growth as a different character in a later expansion. Perhaps she did stay in Doma, perhaps she tried to help and rebuild in a similar role to Fordola takes, but that is not meant to be.
She is gone. Wherefore did the Kami spare us, only to inflict this pain?
But speaking of Fordola, of course, we have the big Post MSQ Stormblood video to do for you, and we'll be doing that next. So stay tuned and stay subscribed, because I have some very, very, very stark thoughts on the Post MSQ overall, But I did feel like Yotsuyu deserved her own video, so I would chat about these. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Be sure to check out our website if you want to help support us and enjoy these videos. And thank you, everybody. We're loving our new home, and we hope we can make you some good stuff as well. Goodbye. Talking to you, Chris. It's nice, you know.
But, you know, it's a little more
Team working, you know what I mean? Team working. Don't pull that in.